So I tried to, when I came to visit Korea for the first time, like 10 years ago, I remember coming here and oh, I don't feel like the way, I don't feel like one of them. Right. And so over like the years, it just made me go, fuck it. Who cares? Like even, like amongst Korean Americans, there's some people that identified themselves more as American, some people more as Korean, some people kind of like, me and you, where we're kind of like, I'm kind of in the middle. You know what I mean? So and ultimately I go, it doesn't really matter what you categorize me as or what I categorize myself as, because it don't fucking matter. It's not going to.
Oh, baby, good gravy. What's good, Mime Timers? I'm super pumped to share with you this week's episode. I had a dope-ass conversation with a dope-ass dude, Danny Cho, LA born and raised Korean American who quit his six-figure consultancy job to pursue comedy full-time. He's toured for many years in the States and throughout Asia. Several years ago, he started doing stand-up comedy in Korean and has been fostering the Korean stand-up comedy scene for years now. He's the only Korean American comedian who's doing comedy in Korea in Korean. That's dope. And he and Bobby Choy host the Noonchi Podcast. You're listening to Mime Time, a show where we delve into the richness of the Asian diaspora experience, addressing the identity struggles that we face so that we can come to greater understanding, peace, and love for ourselves and our cultures and our heritage and every single fiber of our being, and tying that into self-actualization, being the best version of yourself to make the most out of your life, to live the best life you possibly motherfucking can. This dope-ass conversation with Danny Cho is in two parts. In part one, we talk more about the ethnic and cultural identity side of being Korean Americans, being Korean in America, and being American in Korea. We're basically like McDonald's bulgogi burgers. Not quite Korean, not quite American, something in between. And accepting our existence as McDonald's bulgogi burgers. In part two, we'll talk more about his comedy career path and all the cool shit and the struggles that come along with doing that. Pursuing a path in which you follow your passion over having a stable career. Fam, let me tell you, I put a lot of time and hours these days, a lot of attention to detail into doing these episodes, and I'm always trying to make them better. So I hope you really enjoy something out of it. I hope you get a lot out of it. And if you do, if you're a cheeky McDonald's bulgogi burger like me, or a sushi burger, whatever godforsaken freaky fusion that you might be, and you think, oh, yes, I am like a McDonald's bulgogi burger. Am I bulgogi? Am I burger? I don't know. Am I sushi? Am I burger? I don't know. I can relate to the struggle. And I have friends who are also McDonald's burgers or sushi burgers. Then please, 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 for the sake of Mime Time, please share this episode with them. It would mean the world to me. Please share it with a friend. Or send me a message, whether or not you know me personally. Hit me up directly or email me at mime@mimetime.com or DM me at mimetime and just tell me, Mime, you're doing a great job. Mime, this episode was really entertaining and funny. Mime, keep up the great work. Mime, you're doing God's work. You're doing Buddha's work. Your ancestors would be proud of you. Your dead dad would be proud of you because you're an amazing person and you're living an amazing life, fulfilling your life's purpose to bring healing, peace, joy, and love to the Korean diaspora, to all Asian diaspora. My dear audience, fam, please tell me these things. Lie to me. I don't fucking care, because every single word of encouragement that comes from you, a text here, an email there, a DM here, a conversation there, to make Mime Time the best show I possibly can and to become the best version of myself and to be the best person I can possibly be. Enjoy this episode. Thank you. I love you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Mime Time. Do you know what time it is? Yes, it is indeed Mime Time. And today we have a very awesome guest. We have Danny Cho. Hello, Danny. How are you today?
Hey, what's up, everybody? What's up, Mime?
What is up, Danny? I'm really pumped to talk with you today because, one, like I've watched your comedy here and there on YouTube over the years. And I remember first meeting you I think back when I was working at the club at Boom Bar back in the day, and I was like, oh man, this is that guy, Danny Cho. And we didn't get to talk much, but I was like, oh, like I wanna have a chat with him sometime about comedy and stuff. Because mime timers, you may not know this, but I used to go to stand-up comedy open mics and perform, and I don't think I was that funny. So maybe it's a good thing that I stopped. But like I love the stand-up comedy scene, and a part of me just got involved just because I want to be part of the community, just because I want to hang out with a bunch of funny guys, because it's just fun. It's just fun, and good energy to be around a bunch of people who like to make each other laugh. Anyways, Danny, I know you are LA born and raised, and I just want to ask you questions about like your background. So, what was it like for you growing up as the only Korean American in East LA? You were like the only Asian kid growing up, right?
Yeah, I was my when I came to Korea, I found out that there was another Korean dude that lived in East LA, but at the time I thought it was me and my family that was the only one that was living in Boyle Heights, East LA. How was it? I mean, it's kind of cliche, but you find you are facing racism. Wasn't violent, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I got to know a ton of fights or whatever when I was younger, but I think it was just kind of like, uh, don't play with the Chinese kid. You know what I mean? Don't play with them because they don't know the difference between like Asians back in the day. So don't play with the Chinese kid. I think the more, I guess, shocking thing would be like my parents owned a liquor store in East LA, and the house was right behind it. So like, I got to see beyond the racist, like the dangerous shit of the neighborhood. You know what I mean? Like, I remember I was 4. I was eating like an ice cream in front of the liquor store, just sitting down, just chilling, and 2 rival gangs, they kind of lined up in front of the street like it was like a 1800s war. You know what I mean? Back in the days, wars where they like line up in the middle of the street in broad daylight,
They were like loading
and
up their muskets, like, you want this motherfucker?
yeah, and they started shooting each other in the middle of the street. And then so my dad was, "What the fuck are you doing? Come inside!" Right? So
Yeah, let me
it
put
was
some
like,
liquor in your ice cream.
no, I mean, not even that. Just being like, you're gonna get shot, stupid. So like, it was like that kind of stuff. Some of the gang members, I guess the losing team, ran. Some of them ran into the store, and
What?
then were asking my dad to like hide them. You know what I mean? My dad hid him in the walk-in freezer. You know, and then so like but in order for like kind of like punishment, my dad locked the freezer for an hour. You know, and so like they're like, when they came out, they're like, "What the fuck? How come you didn't open the fuck?" Like, and my dad was like, don't do gang, stupid. So that was that kind of shit. But it was like, I saw a lot of robberies, guns, shit like that. You know.
Wow. And do you think that neighborhood is still like that? Do you think there's still a lot of like gang violence and activity like that these days?
I
Or do you think
mean,
it's gentrified a bit?
a little bit, but that's gang stuff is not gonna ever go away, but it has calmed down from when I was younger for sure.
That's crazy to think about that when we were growing up, people didn't really know what Korea was. You were either Chinese or Japanese. What kind of Asian are you? What kind of Chinese are you? I grew up in Maryland and Charlotte, North Carolina, and Raleigh, North Carolina. And I was the only Asian kid in my neighborhood growing up. And then going
Mm.
to elementary school, I was one of very few Asian kids, like maybe in like a homeroom class. I'm like one of 20 to 30 kids. I'm like the only Asian kid,
Right,
or
right, right.
definitely the only Korean kid. And so even growing up, I was just like, other people keep asking me if I'm Chinese. So I see Chinese people, and yeah, we have the cheeky, chinky almond eyes. So they look more similar to me. So maybe I am Chinese. Like, I really don't know, because I don't know what Korea is. Okay. Like, the only frame of reference I have immediately is like my own family. I see other Asian people, and
Right.
like they're close to me. They look close to me. So, I grew up with like this weird identity crisis, this identity complex that I think maybe a lot of Korean Americans, a lot of Asian Americans, Asian diaspora all over the world, right? The readers like, what am I? Who am I? Right? Because we're kind of forced to be put in a box.
Right. I mean, like in I don't know if it's for all like Spanish speaking countries, but definitely in my neighborhood, everybody Asian was called Chinos, which
Right.
kind of refers to Chinese people, right?
But
So,
Asians in general,
uh,
actually.
right, right.
Mm.
But the term Chino means Chinese. You know what I mean? So it's and like it's that idea of like, well, if you got those eyes, bro, then you must be Chinese or Japanese, right? And I remember I was like, yo, I'm from, I'm Korean, and they'd be like, what part of China is that? You know what I mean? So like they it's I mean, only until fairly recently, with like Korean movies and K-pop and like Korean food that Korea has kind of been on the map, I think, in the in the eyes of like the U.S., right? Like before, there was a war, and then that was it. So I mean, for me, like feeling that kind of ignorance, and in the beginning it bugged me, but now I don't, it doesn't bug me at all. Actually, you know what I mean? It doesn't make me sad, or it doesn't make, you know what I mean? It doesn't piss me off as much as it used to when I was younger.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I got totally pissed off. Like, no, I'm not Chinese. I'm Korean. Not that I said it
Yeah.
like that, but so like I would go with this back and forth. Like, no, like I'm not Chinese. I'm Korean. Because I actually wasn't born in America, but my family moved when I was 1, so I technically
Mm,
wasn't even a U.S. citizen at the time, which is like a
mm,
very interesting nuance. Like I'm first generation immigrants,
right.
technically, as are my brothers. My 2 older brothers, they grew up in Korea. They went to elementary school. I was just a baby. So
Right.
in one sense, compared to my parents and my brothers, I think I'm more American than they are because like I didn't have as much Korean influence. So even within my own family, like I'm kind of like not the black sheep, but I'm the maknae 동생, right? I'm the youngest, so I have a more American assimilation experience, I would say. And even if I were like boast about it, I think like my English sounds a bit more native and fluent than my older brothers, even though they're educated doctors and they're very well spoken. But growing up, I always had this, back and forth, like, no, like I'm Korean, but no, I'm American because I grew up in America. This is all I know. Like, I don't know what Korea is like. Like, so why are people putting me in a
Yeah.
box? Why are people treating me like an outsider? I feel so lost and confused. And I definitely can't talk about these issues to my parents because they don't speak good English. They don't know what I'm going through. At the same time, I don't know what they're going through being parents and having to, take care of 3 sons and whatever. And
Right.
and like I don't speak Korean. So then I go through this whole again identity issue is like I can't even speak my own mother tongue. But I see other Korean kids, they can speak Korean. My brothers speak Korean. So what's wrong with me? So I blamed
Mm,
myself. So, I could do all this back for like, I'm Korean. No, I'm American. And then I go through the phase where I try to separate myself from Koreans and Korean people and resent my Korean family and my background. Cause like I wished I was white and I wished I was black, cause like those kids don't have the same problems. At least they all speak English with their parents. Why is it that just I'm the only one who can't speak Korean with my parents? What makes it defective about me? And so
mm.
sorry to get on the soapbox with you, Danny, but this is why I have a podcast because like I have all this trauma, man, and I just want to talk about my feelings. and
I mean,
and
this is obviously not the I was how to say, in this day and age, we can't say it this way, but like I grew up in a former generation where when people feel this way, the way you feel,
mm, mm.
the go-to answer is, man, quit being a pussy and suck it up, motherfucker, right? You know what I mean? Like, wham wham, we all went through that shit. Like that's how. But the interesting part about it is that like the Asian American or Korean American experience, as I get uh, as I see more people, is that there's so many. What is being Asian American or Korean American? Understand what I mean? Like that you can't, that itself. There, I think we're boxing ourselves we're putting ourselves in a box if we go. There's kids that grew up in a very predominantly Korean American community in like say LA or whatever, right? And then there's people like you that have never seen, or not seen, but there weren't that many Koreans in your area, right? So like, so who's to say that one's more Korean American than the other? Matter of fact, like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like you know, that's my that you know, I actually I felt that more so. I would say like since I moved here into Korea, but before that, even when came to visit a handful of times, it was like, you know, I always said I used to have a bit about how like I wish there were more Asian American basketball players in the NBA, so I can say Jeremy Lin sucks without looking like a traitor. You know what I mean? But because he's the only one, like I have to be like, oh yeah, he's amazing, you know, like whatever, you know what I mean? Now some people are like, well, are you better than Jeremy? I was like, no, motherfucker, of course not. If I was, then I wouldn't be telling dick jokes in Korea. I'd be playing basketball, you stupid, right? But the thing is, like, because he's the only one, or he was the only one, like, you know, I had to represent and you know, support my people. You know what I mean? But then, you know, you know, in America, I feel very different is because like in America, as Asian Americans, you're kind of taught to kind of support each other, like represent the same Asian flag, so to speak, right? But as you know, like similar, to like the black folks, right? Like there's African Americans, there's like there's Nigerian Americans, there's you know, and you know, even all the way up to like the Caribbean Americans, right? Like, but they all fall under a flag of black. You know what I mean? While Asian Americans, we do fall under one flag, but we, you know, as you know, to be honest, like even amongst Asians, there's like this racial hierarchy depending on who you ask, right? So like, it was not you know, as a big group when I was growing up compared to now. You know what I mean? Especially with all the Asian hate shit, and you know what I mean? Like that, I think that kind of made people more aware and mobilize as a whole compared to back in the days. You know?
Yeah, indeed. And, you know, I bring up the issues of the past, you know, like the trauma that I went through, or the racial discrimination, or the bullying, being told go back China, this and that. And, you know, not even having like my own ethnicity acknowledged, not even knowing what, say, Korean is, you know, to now, like as an adult, I can look back on those experiences and I can say, okay, like I was going through a tough time, but hey, my parents are the ones who made the sacrifice to go to America. They didn't speak the language. So I can't imagine what it was like for them, for their sacrifice. So while it's unfair for me to be like the only Asian kid who can't even speak his own Asian mother tongue and have this identity crisis, and my parents maybe like yelling at me or not listening to me when I wanted to voice my issues, you know, all my grievances, real or imagined, like I just want to have some more perspective so I can understand my parents' grievances, like the struggles that they went through, so that I can understand where they're coming from. And I don't need to take my pain personally. Like I don't need to take whatever perceived or real abuse or neglect from my parents towards me as something personal. They were just doing the best that they can. And they're actually good, decent, loving people who, yeah, they tried the best that they can. And I look at them as heroes now, right? And we can, and I could go at length talking about my parents and family history, but now it's great that I can just look back at my past self and how sorry I felt for myself. And I laugh. I think I laugh at all that past pain and bullshit. And I laugh at how seriously I took everything, because now my life is really great. And so I'm not trying to like diminish, you know, my own suffering or whatever, but now like I'm just able to laugh at all the pain that I went through in my past, you know, and then I'm able to like the pressure and the negative, like, oh man, when I was a kid, the kid called me a chink and my parents didn't listen to me and life is unfair. And now I can just laugh at myself, because yes, life is unfair, but it's also very beautiful. Like the fact that I am who I am today, the fact that I've been able to come back to Korea and even learn my mother tongue and even like build self-confidence. Even like to have the courage to, you know, go ask girls out on a date, right? And in Korean, something I thought that I would never have the ability or the confidence to do. I always thought I was like the most pathetic, worthless, shameful piece of shit out there, right? I thought I was not deserving of love or happiness or success or fulfillment because I was too incompetent. I can't even speak my own mother tongue. And also contextually, going back to like, yeah, no one knew what Korea is. Now the whole world knows and America knows. You think in your neighborhood now, people don't know who Korean people are in East LA, like now?
Well, they know my parents. I mean, my parents lived there for forever. So like that, they know that. But I think, I don't know. I mean, like it's Korea, the land of movies, K-pop, and Korean barbecue. No, it's more than that, right? And so like it becomes like a bigger talk when it's like, well, do they really still know Korea? They just know that it exists. You know what I mean? As opposed to like that country exists in the minds of a lot of people that I know, as opposed to like, oh yeah, I know their food. I know how to say 안녕하세요, right? But but do you really know Korea? Not really. You know what I mean? I think that's my point. I think I think it's one step to be on the map in their eyes, right? But I think it's another step to like, and I'm like yeah, true. Like I'm not saying that everybody in the world should like learn Korean history and you know what I mean, the language and customs and rituals and whatnot. I mean that's just too much to ask. But yeah, I mean I'm sure they've heard of BTS. You know what I'm saying? Like
Burning Tongkumong sensation.
yeah. So like, but we'll see. I don't know. I mean, there's a part of me that goes, yeah, I want to be like, yeah, we're more than bulgogi, and kimchi. We're more than fucking, Parasite and BTS, right? And to be honest, like, I feel like there's so many people. I mean, I don't know that many Korean Americans that are relatively fluent in Korean. You know what I mean? I think most of them barely can speak. Matter of fact, I mean, I do stand up in the Korean language here, right? But I know that out of all the Korean American comedians, I'm probably the only one that can do it. Meaning, it's not that I'm saying that I'm the shit. I'm just saying that, like, they never grew up thinking that they should, be fluent in Korean. And on top of that, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, you know?
Yeah, there's a whole spectrum of, of course, experiences and attitudes towards like culture and heritage, even within, say, one enclave, the Korean American community, right? There's a bunch of
Right.
diversity. And yeah, there's a bunch of, I know there are Korean Americans who will live their whole life in the US and they barely speak any Korean and they don't really feel the impulse, but maybe they'll still identify with Korean culture to some degree, because maybe it's not just about the language, but knowing the history and the culture and spending time with other Korean people and holding some traditions doesn't necessarily mean that maybe that's just what they value more in terms of their heritage. So I respect that as well. For me, I
Yeah.
was like, I need to overcome my pain. Like the pain of not knowing my own mother tongue was so deeply ingrained to me as a kid that it became inseparable for me. So like me coming
They
to
didn't,
Korea.
your
Sorry,
parents
go ahead.
didn't send you to like Korean school or like Hamgurakyo or whatever?
Yeah, they did, to their credit, they did. The issue
Mm.
there was that I just wanted to play video games and watch cartoons on Saturday morning. I didn't want to go to no
Right.
Hangul Hakyo. This is America,
Right.
motherfucker. Speak English, right? That was my
Right.
attitude. Because I go to school all day and all these kids speak English. We all speak English and they pick on me. And then I go home and my parents are fighting with each other. My parents don't understand what I'm going through and they don't seem to really care. So why should I reciprocate? This was me being very like stubborn, or I don't know if konde is the right word, but I was very stubborn because they were stubborn. So I was
Mm.
stubborn. Right? Like, why are you going to force this Korean shit on me when you send me to, you make me go to American school all day long and I'm learning English, right? As a kid,
Yeah.
like so I'm not saying I was a kid, I didn't know any better, but I developed the resistance towards my parents
Mm.
because, and so looking back, I understand they did their best, so my part of my healing and my journey is to just like let that shit go, mime. They really did try. Your mom did teach you Hangul and you're lucky that you even did that. there are so many adoptees who don't even have their own Korean mom to teach them Hangul. So,
Right.
so like coming to Korea and becoming very good friends with adoptees from all over the world, especially Korean American adoptees. I learned to appreciate, okay, yeah, my parents and I, maybe it wasn't fair. Other Korean American families, other Asian American families, maybe they didn't have to go through the shit and the dysfunction that I went through with my parents and so on. But, the grass is always greener on the other side. And there are people who, maybe arguably had it worse. I'm lucky to even have had these parents who are generally hardworking and they want the best for their sons deep down in their hearts. Even, in spite of the dysfunction and like the psychological trauma that they went through, all this stuff. So yeah, so I thought that I was very like, I'm not Korean. I had this mindset for a long time, like I'm not Korean, or I'm not going to think about this identity. I'm just American, and like I'm not going to ever go to Korea anyways, so I'm not going to ever learn Korean, you know. But of course, deep down inside, that fucked with me because I knew deep down, like I was denying a part of myself. I knew that wasn't coming from a good place. It was just a sensitive nerve for me. But so then when the opportunity came, after, I mean, this is a long story, but after I had my faith crisis and I gave up my Christian religion and my faith, like I turned away from the faith because I realized I didn't believe it anymore. I was a biblical studies major at Gordon College in Massachusetts, and I went for 2 years. My dream was to be a fucking pastor, a youth pastor, and shout out to all my Korean American church brethren. I really gave that faith my all because I didn't have a sense of identity, like a strong sense of confidence or identity. I think me being confused about my my ethnic heritage and all that, I think that really fucked with me. So what did I do when I couldn't find meaning? I found meaning in Christ. I found meaning in Jesus. Yes, Jesus, I love you. Thank you for dying and taking the sins of, all the times I jacked off to porn and all the times I thought about, eating instead of worshiping Jesus. I was deep in it. I used to think the earth was 6,000 years old and all this shit. I wanted to be a pastor and I didn't want to give up this worldview, but I did because I wanted to be intellectually honest with myself deep down inside. So I had to turn away. And the pastors and the professors, they didn't give me the answers that I wanted. And so I was very immature in all kinds of ways. And I was very stubborn, set in my ways. But then I snapped. So I lost my faith. I lost my meaning for the world. I wanted to kill myself because that's how bad it got. And then I thought, okay, instead of kill myself, why don't I just see where life goes? And then I sought my oldest brother's guidance. And then he said, let's go to California, come to California. He was living in Oakland at the time. And then instead, what happened was we went to Korea for a trip and he had some connections there. He's like, hey, man, why don't we come to Korea instead? So then I was like, okay, well, I thought my life, it was the end of my world. I dropped out of school. What am I doing with my life? What do I have better to do? Sure. Go to Korea, learn Korean, start tutoring, one-on-one private conversations, save up some money and then like get out of my shell, go to open mics, like just try to explore myself. And that was the best decision that I ever made in my life, to come to Korea. Yeah, sorry, I got on a tangent. So I learned Korean. I did it, man. I learned Korean, and now I can read and submit legal documents in Korean. Like I learn bits of words every day. I'm still far from my ideal fluency, but we were talking about last time, like, do I feel adjusted to the society? Like as much as I can be. But the beauty of it, of me trying to be Korean, learn Korean and the culture and inzang and, doing all this shit, I realized no matter how much I study or how much I expose myself to Korean people and the culture, and even if I'm learning like, ancient Korean history in Hangul, I am who I am. I'm Korean American. I'm proud and humbled to have grown up in America. And I'm also mime. I'm a unique individual and I will never be Korean. So it was just a gradual realization. Oh, I don't need to pretend to be something that I'm not, even though I tried. So that's why I would encourage to some people out there who kind of confused about who they are, try to learn about, if you're a third culture kid, like if you're Indian American or whatever, try to go deep into your own culture. Like if you're, let's say, for example, you're Indian American, but you're whitewashed, not a Twinkie, but like, what's brown on the outside and white on the inside? Like a hostess.
Ding dong.
Ding dong. Yeah. So maybe Maybe you're an Indian American ding dong.
Mhm.
Maybe you should go back to India if you feel like you want to get in touch with your roots, and then you'll do that. And then the Indians will probably see you as an outsider because you're a ding dong. And then you will find yourself in that between, like, oh, okay, like I will never be Indian because I grew up in India. Like, now most people, they don't need to do this, but for me, this was like huge for me. And I felt like I found myself because I could become at peace with myself. Like, hey, I took action to find myself, and I realized, oh, this is not, I can never be Korean, and that's okay. So I'm like Korean American, but I'm just who I am. And life is just a journey about finding who you are. Like I'm still finding out who I am. And
Yeah.
at least I'm in a great spot. And I have a life affirming attitude towards Korea, Korean people, Korean culture. I'm grateful for it. I'm proud of it. And as well as growing up in America, like I'm Western, I'm like very individualistic minded as fuck the same time. And what I want to do is I want to reconcile the best of both worlds and to be the best version of myself so that we can like learn from each other. So I want to connect with Korean people as well as Korean American people. And I want to maybe heal a divide and maybe bridge these misunderstandings, just like the way I did with my parents. And that's why you're a fucking trailblazer, man, because you are the only Korean American who speaks Korean well enough to be doing Korean comedy. Like you're part of fucking Korean culture history, worldwide human stand-up comedy history, man. That's why I want to talk with you because what you're doing is fucking cool as fuck and no one else has done it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think even with the some of the material that I bring on stage in Korea for the Korean audience, it's similar to how you feel about like, yo, man, I look like I should own a kogi chip in
족발
somewhere
사장님,
in,
족발집
yeah, right,
사장님.
right, but once I open my mouth, they go, oh, this fool's not one of us. You know what I mean? And so, I and it's fine. I don't really care to be accepted. I mean, I always say, I always likened our like Korean Americans or Korean Canadians. Like I liken us to like the McDonald's bulgogi burger, right?
Mm.
Where like if a Korean eats it, is oh, it tastes like Korean food, but it's not fucking Korean food. And when a Westerner sees that from afar, it's like, oh, that looks like a hamburger. This is not a fucking hamburger, right? So it's like we're neither we're in like cultural purgatory. But I always go, it's fine to
Yeah, it's
like
fine.
that. It's fine to be that, right? Because in the beginning, like similarly, like yo, man, I was born in the U.S. I went to school there. Like I did stand up. I had a job. I paid taxes, right? But this country that supposedly I'm, American, or a U.S. citizen, treats me like shit. Like not overtly, but like you can feel the subtle, like hints of like aggression and discrimination compared to like the white European that landed in LAX 10 minutes ago. You know what I mean? And so like I found that kind of shitty. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Uh, and then I remember when I came to visit Korea, like before I visited, like I was like, yo, I wanna feel like a white person does in my country. So I tried to, when I came to visit Korea for the first time, like 10 years ago, I remember coming here and was, oh, I don't feel like the way, I don't feel like one of them. Right. And so over like the years, it just made me go, fuck it. Who cares? Like even, like amongst Korean Americans, there's some people that identify themselves more as American, some people more as Korean, some people kind of like, me and you, where we're kind of like, yeah, I'm kind of in the middle. You know what I mean? So and ultimately I go, it doesn't really matter what you categorize me as or what I categorize myself as, because it don't fucking matter. It's not going to be it's not going to be on my tombstone. Here lies Danny Cho, Korean American. No, it's going to be like, son or brother or friend or whatever. Right. So I feel like that
족발집
defines me
사장님.
more. Yeah. That defines me more than what ethnicity I am. You know what I'm saying? So don't matter to me. And so the more and more I think that way, I think I'm more at peace with how things are going for me in terms of there is no longer an identity crisis. You know what I mean? To be honest, I never really had one, but like it's just kind of from me looking at it and just seeing how people reacted from all over the world. It's funny because like when we go to like another country, like say I don't know, Singapore or whatever. Oh, you're Korean, and then it's the same. It's like, oh, I love Koreans, I love Korea or whatever, right? So I go, oh yeah, okay. It doesn't make me go, oh, good job Korea for making this person like your shit. You know what I mean? Like I just go, oh, okay, cool. I just chalk it up to like back. I remember when I was working at a consulting firm in the U.S. and my white boss was like, "Oh, Dan, I just want to let you know. Last week I tried a green tea for the first time. The fuck are you fucking telling me that, right?" But it was just them trying to start small talk with kind of like, "Ooh, guess what? I think I know something that your people might know about." Right, and I go, um, congratulations on the green tea. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you're Korean? Dude, I love kimchi jjigae. All right. Again, congratulations, right? Like, it don't make me feel good or bad, really. So,
Yeah,
you know.
and I wish I had these conversations like when I was younger, and because when we were kids, we had no podcasts or we had no online community forums where we could like go back and forth and talk about these things. Like I was just all alone with my own experiences and my own thoughts, thinking I was
Mm,
alone, and maybe I did, I don't know, crazy way, did something to deserve like my confusion and my lack of self confidence and all that.
mm,
And yeah, now
mm,
it's just, I mean, I think I still have a complex, like it's something that's like wired deep in my brain that I can't
mm,
completely unwire. It's just like patterns, like thought, deeply ingrained thought patterns for decades that I'm
mm,
gradually unraveling. I would say as well, like I don't really have an identity crisis anymore, but perhaps I have
mm,
some sort of complex, and that maybe won't change, but at least I have a much more positive attitude. At least I can say I've made progress. At least I can say like, hey, I learned Korean. I talked about these issues with lots of different people, and I've had moments of self-reflection and epiphanies and lots of meditation to come to where I am now, where I am a very peaceful, joyful individual on a day-to-day basis. And
yeah,
the pains of whatever I had in the past that was related to my identity, now I can just laugh at them. Now I can just be like, yeah, it wasn't such a big deal at all. And actually, maybe I had to go through those things to appreciate something like being able to speak Korean, because I feel like I appreciate speaking Korean, being able to even read Yongsujung like on a receipt, and it just has all the details on a receipt, and just that I can read it out loud and understand what it means. That is so fucking priceless to me. I think I appreciate that more than Korean people ever will, in a weird way.
mm,
And so I'm just like, oh, this gives me that perspective, and this gives me compassion for people who feel lost in their own identities, whether they're Korean American or Asian American or Black Canadian, whoever. Like I want to listen to people and I hear their stories, and I because I know what it's like to have no one out there to listen to your shit when you're going through a hard time, or to feel like you're the only one going through some particular struggle. And even now, like it still bothers me. That's why I say I have a complex. But
mm,
now I think, well, if a cab driver or someone says like, hey, this, like you're not one of us. Not that they say it like that, but oh, 어느 나라 사람이세요? Whatever. What country are you from? There's a part of me that gets a bit defensive. I still do that from time to time. But now I'm just like, I'm a lot more gracious about it. I'm just like, yes, I'm Korean American. 저는 재미교포예요. 미국에서 왔어요. I came from America. And now like I try to go a lot more graciously, because I look at that as a personal spiritual opportunity for me to become the bigger person, for me to, not for even for their sake, but just for my sake, just because I don't want to get triggered, right? It's not their fault
yeah,
that I'm
yeah,
getting triggered. If I'm this self-aware, I can just chill out, man. Just let some of these things go. And when people say like, "Oh, you're Korean," yeah, if I've traveled to Thailand or whatever or Vietnam, they love Korean people, and you know what? That benefits me in the sense that like, oh, they kind of look favorably on me, and I think I'm an awesome, friendly person in general. So like that, I think that does compliment to me like their perception of Korean people, even though like I'm not Korean. I like I'll take advantage of it, and then they're like, oh yeah, Oppan Gangnam Style, and they love it, Oh
Hmm.
yeah, I love kimchi jjigae too, sure. And
Right.
yeah, I mean, like it's cool to just be neutral, like all right, whatever, it doesn't affect me. But I just take it with good humor at this point. When I was a kid, I
I
would,
have
yeah.
no, I have Korean American friends in Korea. Like when they get in a cab, they refuse to speak. Like me, like similar to like open their mouth. You know what I mean?
Oh man.
Because if they try to speak English, okay, so I guess the fear is, and I feel like every foreigner and expat and Korean American has uh, a bad taxi story. You know what I mean in Korea.
That's a
You know,
podcast, Bad Taxi
right,
Stories. Oh,
right,
that's
and so
BTS,
like
aka Burning
yeah,
Tokbong Sensation.
no, that I think that's so like whether like this person's not from here, I'm gonna take him the long way. You know what I
Mm,
mean,
mm.
or there's some people that have not so you tell them the location and then they drop you off like a block and a half away
Mm.
and then you're lost, especially if you're a visitor. And so like like things like that, I've heard so many of those stories. And so like I have a lot of Korean American friends here that just don't say shit, or they'll just use the Kakao taxi app so that
Mm.
they know where this is where I need to go. It's for those that are not from Korea, Kakao taxi is kind of like Uber.
And see, I understand that because there's that. It's I don't know what it is. It's very subconscious. It's like a complex thing, that moment for, as say, a Korean American to get in a cab, and then once you start talking, there's like that moment, like, oh, they're gonna find out that I'm an outsider or whatever. They're gonna start asking me questions, or for me, I'm gonna be nervous that I'm gonna say something and they're not gonna understand what I'm saying,
Mm.
right? Like
Actually,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
actually, I do have I don't want to say it's a bad taxi story, but it's a very interesting taxi story, right? So like one day I left my phone somewhere and the phone was and that somewhere was closed. So I had to pick it up the next day, right? But I was in an area where there's not that many taxis. So I was outside and it took me like 50 minutes to get a taxi, hail a cab, right? I get in one and I tell him where to go. And then, similarly to you, he goes, "Oh, where are you from? Like your accent's." Well, he didn't say it directly, but he implied your accent's kind of fucked up. Where you from, bro? Right? So I go, I'm from the U.S. Blah blah blah, and we had a talk and discussion about like why I came here and whatnot. All of a sudden, the taxi driver shows me his phone and a picture of his daughter, and then he goes, "Do you want to meet her?" And and I was like, yeah, sure, she's cute, right? Right, but then but I go, yo, but I just shoot. What if I'm like you just met me? Like, what if I'm a fucking a psycho, a serial killer or whatever, right?
Exactly.
And then he goes, well, I've done this taxi thing for a long time, and I could tell. I have a gift of reading people, and you look like you have a good heart, and I think you would treat my daughter right. And I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, so
And then
honorable.
so and I was like, all right, whatever. And then so like, but the thing is, I couldn't give him my phone number. I could give him my phone number, but like, I don't have a phone on me, so I couldn't like, you know what I mean? Like it was locked elsewhere. So I gave him a business card. In your mind, like you start writing a movie about this potential love story about, hey man, like I got her in
Sure.
your dad's cab, and now we're married, kind of shit, right? Like stupid romance, dumb shit, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so anyway, like we get to the destination, right? And then I was about to pay with my credit card, and he goes, "잠시만요, wait a minute," right? And then the fee went up a little bit, like so. You know how like it's time, so if it passes something, then like it goes up by like a few pegon or hundred, whatever
Mm-hmm.
the what is. So I was like, all right, yeah. I saw the fee go up, then I was like, okay. I'm gonna chalk this up to introducing me to your daughter tax. That's what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I paid, and then so obviously I didn't have my phone with me the whole night, right? So the next day when I to the get to the venue to get my phone, like I'm expecting like a missed call or a message or whatever. Nothing. I haven't gotten any message from the daughter, and so I chalk it up to this is a very interesting way to like swindle foreigners, right? By you know what I mean? By because like if you're looking at the daughter's picture, you're not aware of what direction the cab driver's taking you. Like, is he taking you the long way, the short way, or whatever? So you're more fixated on the picture, and then you're more thinking about like, oh, hey, blah blah blah. And so I was like, wow, that is a fucking interesting con move. And so and then so I told my mom about the story, and then she was like, no, she's gonna call. Right? And I was like, no, mom, I just got swindled. And then she goes, oh, should I get a humble? And and I was like, wow, you are taking it way far to go to think that that's gonna happen. But no, I mean, to me, it's like there's always gonna be like these stories. I mean, yeah, like I said, I have friends that don't say shit when they get into the car. You know what I mean?
Well, that's a great story. I mean, you don't know. Maybe he really had that intention or whatever, but then maybe he just forgot. Maybe I don't know if he didn't have a picture of you to show to his daughter, I would assume. Right. So
yeah, but if I think I'm kind of a pessimistic person, right? So like, or maybe even a realist. I foresee how it played out, and it's like in the morning he gets home, they're having breakfast together, and he's like, hey, there's this I met this guy yesterday. He seems like a good cat. I got his business card. Here you go. And then she probably was like, "Oh, what the fuck? Stop it! I hate when you do this shit."
That's what I would assume too.
Right,
yeah, and she might exactly. That's what I would assume too. That stop it up. Not again.
Yeah, but then I bet you she would have like, give me the fucking card, right? And then like she probably like neighbored me or Googled me and was like, fuck that fool. Like, hell no.
Like, you don't know. Like, if she had just given you a chance, I mean, woulda, coulda, shoulda, right? But who knows? Like, if like life is weird that way. Like maybe you guys, if you just met up for a coffee, maybe y'all would have really hit it off, and then you could have had this story.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I was like, not only do I do stand up every now and again, I'll write screenplays and whatnot. So like a part of me was like, this would be an interesting rom-com, the way this starts. You know what I mean? So that's how I played it out in my head. But like I'm not super creative. Like I need to kind of experience things for me to write about it, whether it's stand up or whatever. So like, I wanted to deal with. I mean, dude, I have a handful of those. Like, oh, this should be in a movie type of life experiences. So
yeah, that's a great story, man. Taxi stories. Yeah. And we got more stories coming up, fam, in part 2 of this conversation with Danny Cho, which will be released next week. If you haven't already, please subscribe to Mime Time on whichever podcast platform that you're listening to, so you'll get notification for new episodes, which come out every Monday. If you like this content, please consider supporting by sharing it with a friend who likes stand-up comedy or is Korean American or would otherwise get something out of it. Art. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you next time. Mime Time. Oh, baby.